Can we all agree that we live in a culture where our default setting is busy? We're always coming and going, shaking and moving, and all of our commitments can sometimes get the best of us. Today, we're going to talk about overcoming overcommitment. What's going on, good people? Welcome to episode 5 of the Square One podcast. Super excited to be here today having this conversation. I believe that this one is going to be for all of us. Not every podcast episode may be for all of us, but this one, I think this is all of us. So I'm really excited about the conversation. Hey, thank you for doing this each and every week, liking, subscribing, sharing, rating, and reviewing. Please let everybody you know about this podcast. If you found it to be helpful in any way, tell them to jump into the Square One community as well. And you can help us fulfill our mission, which is to help as many people as possible find the courage to start over, stay strong, and shape a powerful future. We believe everybody has the ability to move beyond their Square One moments into a beautiful and successful future. Make sure you also go visit vernongordon.com for some amazing resources and opportunities for you to continue to engage in the conversation. We are really excited about some of the new things that are about to be coming. So make sure you regularly are visiting the page. And if you don't already have the Square One book, make sure you go grab that as well. We're super grateful for all of your support. Well, today we're talking about overcoming overcommitment. Why? Because we want to find a rhythm of life that is actually good for our life. I'm going to say it again. We should all want to find a rhythm of life that is actually good for our life. And if you're like me, my life and your life maybe looks like a full plate most days. I don't know about you, but I love food. Where my food people at, holler at me. I'm telling you right now, I love food. And there's nothing like going to your grandma's house or auntie's house and you getting a plate full of food. I ain't talking about y'all who got your food and they can't touch. I ain't talking about folk who like get a little bit here and a little bit there. I'm talking about those of us who are like, I want the plate to be bending over. No, if it's plastic, I need to put 2, right? I want the plate to be buckling under the pressure of all the food I've mounted on it. It's a full plate. And it's interesting to me, like if we be honest, like we don't just do that with food, but we do it with our time, we do it with our schedule, and we do it with our life. We create full plates. We build everything until we are buckling under the pressure of trying to get from one thing to the next. There's a few of us who become even experts at this. You have timed this meeting to this meeting and how long it takes to get there, whether you take the interstate, whether you take the scenic route. You're like, if I just leave myself this much time, I can run from this place to that place. I can from this thing to that thing. And look, at the end of the day, this is no way to live. Most of us, if we be honest, in our culture, we have been taught, we have been curated into a continual pattern and pace to do, go, be, commit. And I love this quote that I've heard said by many, but it says, if everything is a priority, then nothing is. If everything is a priority, then nothing is. And most people, when we talk about management, we talk about managing money. We even talk about managing time. But today I really want us to understand how to manage energy. Commitments are all about how we manage our energy. Now, let me be fair. As we've been talking over the last 4 episodes, we've been talking about the fact that Square One is not just a place to wait, it's a place to work. And so there's a reality in all of our lives that you got to get up and go. You just can't stay stuck. Like you got to do. And I want to also be clear about this. Activity often precedes alignment. Purpose is rarely discovered in paralysis, right? You got to do. You got to keep moving. And as you do and as you become, you start to find out more of who you are, even in seasons that you never expected you would be in. But just because you're active doesn't mean you're aligned. And alignment, this is so critical, is seasonal. So something that looked like it was aligned to your values in life before doesn't necessarily mean it's aligned now. And so what we want to be asking ourselves in these seasons and these moments of our life is, are my commitments actually aligned with my values? Like, if I have an understanding of my values, do I also have an understanding of how my time, my commitments, my energy aligns with those values? Big statement here, don't miss it. Some of us don't need to add to our to-do list. We need to create a to-don't list. What am I going to stop doing so that my life, my time, and yes, my energy can be aligned with my values? Here's why this topic matters. Because a full calendar doesn't mean a full life. Most people, if we be honest, are overcommitted and underfulfilled. There's a scripture that actually talks about this that I love. It's in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 30. Here's what it says. It's a Message translation. I like the way it says it, though. It says, are you tired, worn out, burned out? Come to me, Jesus says. Get away with me, and you'll actually recover your life. And I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Because I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn how to live freely and lightly. I think this sounds amazing. I don't know about you, but this is exactly the type of thing I would like. I would like to live more freely and more lightly. Maybe you're like, man, yeah, that sounds good. I want to do that. I want something that's not ill-fitting. I want to find the rhythm of life that doesn't overwhelm me. So why don't we do it? Here's why. Because commitments are easy to hide, but they're hard to change. Commitments are easy to hide, but they are hard to change. Watch us even talking to us as we go. So here's what I want you to know. This is going to be an extremely hard episode for some of us because there are people like me who are recovering people pleasers. Come on, let me see your hand. Don't leave me by myself. I am a recovering people pleaser. And for people like us, no is the hardest word to say, but don't miss this. No is a complete sentence. And it's a word that more of us need to learn to say if we're going to overcome overcommitment. I've often found that there are 4 blind spots that stop us from actually working our way out of overcommitment. We don't even know it. Like, it's just something that just happens, right? Like, it's innate. It's our default response. 4 blind spots or types of people, right? I'm in this category. I'll tell you which one I am in a moment. And I just want you to try to see if you identify with any of these blind spots. The first blind spot or individual is the fulfillment forger. These are people who find false fulfillment in things that only satisfy them temporarily, right? They might even buy into the idea that the more I'm a part of, needed in, or asked to do is directly proportionate to my personal value or worth. In other words, I have forged fulfillment because I've claimed fulfillment based on how much I do or how much I'm needed. And this is a false reality. It's not real. Because doing more does not necessarily being more fulfilled. Here's the second one, blind spot. It is this, I made this word up. You ready for this? The yes mess maker. The yes mess maker. Now, this is the one I struggle with the most at a personal level. It's those of us who say yes before we've even thoroughly considered all the implications of those 3 little letters. People say, oh, can you help me with this? Yes. Can you show up for this? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. And then we find ourselves making a mess of things. Why? Because we overcommitted, so we don't show up as the best version of ourselves. Or we end up having to cancel at the last minute. Or we find ourselves now trying to cut corners. Or we're having to adjust the schedule in a way that has drove everybody crazy in our life. Why? Because we said yes and we made a mess. All right? It's a blind spot. You got to be mindful of it. Here's the third one. This is a good one. Ready? Third blind spot. The noble need meter. This is the most admirable of the bunch. It's a person who's in a hard spot because we all like to be known as good people. Like, everybody wants to be known as nice and kind and good. And even more, we love it when people affirm our goodness by saying things like, oh, I just love the fact that they're always there when I need them. They're just always so reliable. You can always count on them. And secretly what happens is it's a noble deed to meet needs for others. But over time, like if we be honest, we've met everybody else's needs but our own. Not our own needs for our personal health, not our own needs for our family, not our own needs for our time, not our own needs for our energy, right? And it becomes a blind spot, all right? 4 blind spots: the fulfillment forger, the yes mess maker, the noble need meter. Here's the last one: the comparison camper. This shows up in those of us who compare our lives over and over again to others. And as a result, watch this, we begin committing our lives in ways that are competitive but not centered to our true identity. In other words, we do out of a need to outdo others, but not to actually do you, right? And all of these things add up to the same problem. We become overcommitted and under-fulfilled. So what happens when we have blind spots? Well, if you've ever driven a car, you know blind spots either get checked or they cause a crash. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do 4 things to evaluate our commitment so that we can overcome overcommitment. 4 things, really quick. You ready? Write these down. Number 1, we're going to name our values, right? The question that brought us into this episode, right, as we talked about last episode, is this idea of, are my commitments actually align with my values? And we just talked about the fact that alignment is seasonal. So maybe it was a good commitment in one season, but it's not in this one, right? So you got to name your values, because until you name it, you can't honor it. Name your values. What's important to me? For me, family, right, time is a value. So there are a couple nights a week where unless my wife and I and my family have come to an agreement, I'm trying to be at home at the dinner table without my phone, fully focused on my family. Game night, Thursday night, with my kids, laughing, playing games. Why? Because it's a value. And until I name it, I can't honor it, right? For me, a value is health and wellness. So I'm going to wake up in the morning, and most days I'm going to go to the gym because I value taking care of my temple, taking care of my body, right? But until I name it, I can't honor it. What does all this mean? That's a commitment that takes time. It also takes energy, which means I have to prioritize it, name it, so I can honor it. Here's the second thing you got to do. After you name your values, you have to schedule your values, right? Because what you don't schedule, you don't value. At the end of the day, when I talk to people, I can always tell what you value by what you schedule. So I want to challenge you, like, if you say you value this, if you say you value your friends, if you say you value health and wellness, if you say you value your business, it needs to show up on your schedule. Schedule your values. Now, a tool that has helped me with this tremendously is my Full Focus Planner. This is a resource that has allowed for me to focus on the most important things each day, but also to look at my day at a glance and really understand what have I scheduled so that I can see if it aligns with my values. Here's the third thing you got to do. Then you have to publish your values. Watch this, where you see them. Because all of us need reminders. We need to know, like, hey, I messed up last week. Hey, I was off rhythm last week. All right, publish your values. Are your values somewhere where you can see them? Again, my Full Focus Planner stays in my hand, so every day I can see, man, I went this whole week and I didn't align my commitments with my values. Maybe you have a shared calendar in your phone with some friends or a loved one or a family member or a spouse or a significant other, right? That's an opportunity for you to publish your values and say, hey, it's crazy. I looked at our whole week and we didn't see talking to each other on it. Do we value this? Hey, I looked at our whole week and at no point did we work on our side business. Do we really value it? Schedule your values, then publish them so you can be accountable to them. And then here's the last one. Protect your values. You got to ask yourself, what boundaries will you implement to ensure they aren't infringed upon? It's not enough to be like, I value this. You got to also ensure that you protect that which you value. Here's what I've come to learn. Boundaries are important because that which you don't build a boundary around, you don't really care about. Can I prove it to you? When you first have children, you know that they're not ready to be overexposed. So what do? You give them boundaries. You build a playpen, or you put them in something that prevents them from going into spaces or things that could harm them or hurt them. You build the boundary because you care about that which you're trying to protect, right? In a friendship, in a relationship, there are certain times where you start talking to somebody, relationship is growing. What do you start to do? Start to put boundaries in place because you say, now that our relationship is progressing, I can no longer say this or be here or do this the same way. Why? Because I value this. Therefore, I have to protect it with the boundaries I placed around it. At the end of the day, our commitments are going to show us where our time goes, where our energy goes. And it's very easy for us to be overcommitted and underfulfilled. And so we want to overcome overcommitment by naming our values, scheduling them, publishing them, protecting them, and then ensuring that if what doesn't align, we got to let go. It's not complicated. It's that simple. Once you do this exercise, you got to have the courage to say, wherever I'm overcommitted, if it doesn't align with my values, if it doesn't need to go with me into the next season, I got to let it go. Right? The challenge in all of our lives is we try to work beyond what is healthy commitment. I remember one time I was talking to somebody, very random conversation, very random. I don't even know how we got into this conversation, but they were an expert on animals, and they started talking about the spider. And they began talking about how the spider web actually is dangerous when insects get stuck in it, not because they originally got stuck, but it says what most insects do once they fly into the spider web is what do? They start fighting it. They start working hard to get out of it. And so they're struggling and they're stretching and they're pushing. And what they don't recognize is based on the way the web is constructed, the harder they fight, the more work they do, they actually get more and more stuck. And most of them stay stuck because they try to work their way out of the season instead of finding a relaxed posture in the season. When you hit square one moments in your life, here's a temptation in all of us. Say, I'm going to work my way out of this. I'm going to grind my way out of this. And sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is pause long enough to ask ourselves, do I just need to overcome overcommitment? Maybe less is more in the next season. Maybe we don't need to do all that we were doing in the last season, and what the square one season offers to us is an opportunity to reevaluate and reconsider what our time and energy is actually committed to. And a lot of us are showing up to the most important things of our life without the energy we need to perform or present at our best, simply because we haven't overcome overcommitment. Don't try to work your way out of the web today. Today, rest in the reality that you can overcome overcommitment. So here's my challenge. My challenge to you is today, create a to-don't list. What do I need to stop doing so that I can bring the most energized, the most insightful, the most creative, the most productive, the most present version of myself to the things I will value going into the next season? Why? Because square one is not the whole story. It's a season, but it's not the last season. And you got to go into the next season being sure that your time, your commitment, and your energy are aligned with your values. Hey, I love you, and I'm excited because I believe we're all together going to overcome overcommitment. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I'm helping you in any way, shape, or form. Maybe I said one thing, maybe I said no things, but if you say, hey, you helped me even a little bit, or this conversation helped me, I want you to do me a favor. Share it with somebody. Let them know you help us, the team here at Square One, continue to help other people when you do. So rate, review, like, subscribe, and share so that we can continue to help people continue to find the courage to start over, stay strong, and shape their future. And don't forget to head over to the website, vernongordon.com, so that we can continue to do this thing called life together. Love y'all. See y'all next episode.